Hello there. Today I'm tasting what I'm hoping is going to be a classic bottle of Burgundy. So this is a Nuits-Saint-Georges 1er Cru. This is Clos de Porrets from Henri Gouges, and the vintage on that is 2018. So Henri Gouges, probably one of the most highly reputed domains, certainly from Nuits-Saint-Georges, and from a site, a monopole that is entirely owned by them. So Henri Gouges himself started his domain in the early 20th century. He inherited 9 hectares of vines from his parents, and he was influential in a number of ways. In the 20s, he was one of the first producers to bottle his own wines rather than selling to negociants to bottle for him, because he felt there was a certain amount of corruption and poor dealings going on there. So he was a leader in that. Evidently, also he was, as one stage he was the mayor of Nuits-Saint-Georges, and at another stage he was on an INAO, the organisation that controls viticulture in France, on their committee, and actually he opposed Nuits-Saint-Georges having Grand Crus. So Nuits-Saint-Georges famously has been the one village that hasn't in Burgundy had Grand Crus, and perhaps suffers from that, but actually some really fabulous 1er Cru like this one. But then the third thing that Henri Gouges is famous for is the fact that he actually selected from his vineyards the Sélection Henri Gouges, which was Pinot Noir, which was white. So in fact, you can get a white Pinot Noir from this same vineyard. So do be careful when you're buying that you're actually getting a red, not a white, unless you want white. Some people argue that selection of Pinot Noir is therefore Pinot Blanc, because Pinot Blanc is derived from Pinot Noir, but others argue this is a separate variety, and it has various names, sort of Pinot Gouges, for instance. The domain is still in his family. Today the wines are being made by his grandchildren and his great-grandchildren. And they have some fabulous vineyards, not surprisingly. I mean, this is a 3.6 hectare vineyard with some broken limestone, and towards the bottom of the vineyard you get more clay in the soils. It sits below a vineyard called Le Perrier, which is a highly recognised vineyard. In terms of the wines, they're hand-picked, they're entirely destemmed. The fruit gets a long cold soak, so that you're taking a lot of aroma and colour out of the fruit before the presence of alcohol, so that's quite a gentle way of extracting. Ferments in vats with temperature control. The temperature's kept down to about 29 degrees is the maximum, which is it's stopping the temperature from getting to excesses, and where the fermentation might stick and off flavours might be produced. After ferment, the wine will spend up to 10 days in the vat, so there's further extraction going. There's more tannins being extracted at that stage. The wine then goes into oak. Probably about 20% of that, 15 to 20% of that will be new. It's French oak, so there's not a huge influence of oak on the wine. Just a gentle touch of flavour, but allowing the wines to soften. The wine does its malolactic conversion in barrel. Once that's happened, the wine is all racked off into vat, where it's homogenised again, because obviously all that's the same vineyard. All these barrels are separate. It then goes back into wood, same barrels that will have been cleaned out, for a further 18 months. So the points there being the cold soak and the extended maceration really being the principal points and not too much oak. So richness is derived largely from the fruit. So let's have a look at this, shall we? You've got a really quite a good depth of colour for a Pinot. I mean, it's by no means opaque. You can see straight through it, but they're nice. It's nicely dark. It's got a nice dark pigmentation there, and the aromas. I mean, this is probably too small a glass to really be tasting Pinot Noir from, but I'll do my best. There's a real sort of rich, almost velvety texture to this. There's a ripeness. There's dark plum. There's prune notes. There's a real sort of lifted high tone note, and behind that all there is a little cedary oak that's adding a sort of a spicy capacity, a sweet spice to the some top notes of sweet spice to the wine. So that's for taste. That's wonderfully mouthfilling and soft. There's a real warmth coming in on the mid palate from the alcohol. Alcohol's only 13.5%. It's not massive and huge. So actually, I say the warmth comes in, but then it subsides at just about what seems like a right level, and freshness comes back. There's a lovely acidity. Perhaps as the acidity's coming in, it's leaving some quite fine, chalky tannins exposed. The wine certainly has good grip, but in general there's a ripeness and a richness that's stopping that from being too astringent. The wine still has quite a lot of, sort of primary fruit. There's a juiciness, almost a sort of a dams and a ripe cherry, not to the extent of jammy sweetness, because those tiny little cedary notes are there, the hints of sweet spice that were noticeable on the nose are coming through here, but there's a juiciness, a dark red fruit, juiciness and freshness that's lasting beautifully on the finish there. Yeah, and this is a mid-weight wine. The alcohol is lending it some weight. It's not got huge tannins, but it's got rounded fruit, and the length is just lovely. The acidity is keeping the perfumed fruit going. That is absolutely delicious. It's still a very young wine. You know, I would happily put that away for 5 or 6 years. I don't know whether I would have the patience not to open it over that period of time, because it's a very attractive wine now. So yes, that is Nuits-Saint-Georges, 1er Cru Clos de Porrets, Clos de Porrets Saint-Georges, from Domaine Henri Gouges. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you'll join us again. Do feel free to like the video, share, and to follow us on YouTube. Thank you for joining us. Bye now.